Earlier this week, I thought this was funny. Some women from our parish were having a cocktail party on Zoom, and that's the evening that the earthquake happened. And they were really pleased with themselves because throughout the earthquake, none of them spilled their drinks, which I thought was pretty amazing. For you people at home, I don't know if you should try it for the next earthquake, but these women were professional. They had years of practice, but that earthquake was amazing. And this Lent has been so bizarre. We have plague, and we have a plague, and potentially economic crisis, and now an earthquake. I mean, the only thing we're lacking is like locusts in the Boise River turning blood red. And so a lot of people are quite anxious. And one woman, very good woman, she actually called because she was anxious. Some other Christians were saying, oh, this means it's the end of time, or some crazy thing like that. And personally, I thought like the earthquake, as rare as they are in Idaho, perfect timing during Lent, in one sense, makes us feel real. I don't think it's the end of the world, but it does make Holy Week a little bit more emotionally real. Because when the priests say to Jesus, stop the crowd from making so much noise, and Jesus says the rocks would cry out. What he's talking about is an earthquake. And when he dies, an earthquake does happen. I just think it makes Lent more real. But I can understand with, a plague, an earthquake, an economic crisis, why somebody would call because they're anxious. And my response was, I think this time demands courage. And look at the greatest generation, our grandparents, who, look what they went through. They went through fighting Nazism and the Great Depression and World War II. We call them the greatest generation because when they were handed so much defeat, they turned it into victory. And if you remember all these great stories of the nation came together. Young men were lying about medical conditions so that they could serve. People were lying about their age just so they can serve. That was the greatest generation. And during the Great Depression, they're the ones who rebuilt this country. And so I said to her, we are the grandchildren of the greatest generation. What looked like defeat out of self-sacrifice, they turned it into victory. And I just like that because what looks like defeat sometimes is really victory. And personally, this is my opinion, but how strong is our country if for 2 weeks people can't stay in place? We used to say we had the greatest economy in the world. How strong was our country if we can't live 2 weeks off some savings? The greatest generation turned defeat into victory. And we, their ancestors, like my generation, we really have been handed everything. I think now is the time to prove that with self-sacrifice and community, we can still win. We can turn this into victory. And I just mentioned that idea that what looks like defeat can actually be victory, because that's the point of Psalm 22, which Jake sung. It's a beautiful song, but but the first words and the title of it is, my God, why have you abandoned me? And this drives me up a wall when I hear supposed religious people say, oh, even on the cross, Jesus lost his faith. He didn't lose his faith. He's dying, he's gasping for air, and he quotes the title of Psalm 22. And Psalm 22 is a victory psalm. It was written hundreds of years before Christ, and yet it fits the prophecy of the crucifixion so well. Other people look at this guy who's dying, and it looks like God has abandoned him. And if you read the whole psalm, it ends with this psalm of trust and victory. It looks like defeat, but this is really victory. And it fits so well because if you remember the psalm, it says, they have pierced my hands and my feet. They have thrown dice for my garments. dogs have surrounded me. Actually, during the crucifixion, there were all these wild dogs because of all the death. But the greatest prophecy is actually the last line. The last line of Psalm 22, and this makes it a victory. The person dying still trusts God, even though it looks like defeat. And then the last line says, generations yet unborn will declare Yahweh saves. And the word Jesus means Yahweh saves. We are those children. We are the generation that today, on Passion Sunday, Palm Sunday, we proclaim Yahweh saves. This looks like defeat, but this is real victory. And so we are supposed to, on this day, make this choice, that we join with Christ. And one of the themes I love in the Bible is the theme of trees. All throughout the Bible, you have this theme of trees. It starts in the Garden of Eden, and there's always two trees. You have the tree of life, and then you have the tree of selfishness. And whenever a tree appears in the Bible, what it symbolizes is somebody's about to make a choice. And there's only two choices, life or selfishness. And doesn't matter who it is, Garden of Eden, Abraham, Noah, and I love this. Well, whenever they make this choice to follow God, there's always a tree. And then Noah turns the tree into the ark and saves other people's lives. And then when it lands, he takes the tree and turns it into an altar. So the idea of tree, the cross is a tree, and altar, always go together in the Bible. Abraham, all of them. And it's always at a tree where you make your decision, either you will follow God or not. And think about this. When they came into the city, they tore off branches, and they waved the branches. Say, tore off tree branches, so the palms are tree branches. It means you're making your choice to follow Christ. We would say the choice is really a victory. Following the cross, it looks like defeat, but it's really victory. This is what victory looks like. When you live your life in self-sacrifice for others, this is what real love looks like. Or one more theme about choice is it's kind of obvious in the Passion where the crowd is able to choose either Barabbas or Jesus. And that fits this Jewish custom on Yom Kippur of two goats. And you have two goats, and one goat gets to live, and one goat they put their sins on, and that goat is sent off in the desert to die. And so what's going on with the crowd and Barabbas is this reenactment. And the crowd gets to choose which one to follow. Barabbas, who symbolizes brutality and murder, or you can choose the way of Christ, of self-sacrifice for other people. And they choose Barabbas. Or in the other Gospels, it'll come up as Caesar. Caesar built a community. He built the Roman Empire off of greed and corruption and graft and violence. He created this community of who to hate. And they choose Caesar. We choose Christ. Christ wants to build a community where other people sacrifice for each other. We give our lives for each other. So on Palm Sunday, we grab tree branches. And before the tree and the altar, the cross and the altar, we make a decision. Which way is the way of life for us? To care for yourself or to pour out your life for other people? In this coming week of Holy Week, we're going to draw out the meaning of what that choice means. What it means at the cross, the tree of Christ, to choose the way of life. For us, it looks like defeat, but this is true victory. This is what love looks like. We are the generation that proclaim Yahweh saves. And so together, let us stand and profess our faith.